All right, so we're diving into a topic that I think is near and dear to many of our hearts.
My stomach is already rumbling.
Mine too,
Mm.
and that's pasta. But not just any pasta. We are talking about the good stuff, the expensive stuff, the kind that makes you wonder if it's actually worth the extra dough.
Literally and figuratively.
Exactly. And to get to the bottom of this culinary conundrum, we've been sifting through a mountain of sources, everything from scientific analyses of wheat varieties to marketing materials that make you want to empty your wallet for single box of noodles.
We even delved into the world of pasta
Oh
pans.
yeah, things got real nerdy. But trust me, it's all in the name of answering that burning question, is expensive pasta really worth it? And let me tell you, some of the things we found were pretty surprising, like the fact that even experts have a tough time telling the difference between single origin durum wheat and blended wheat once the pasta is actually cooked and sauced.
It really highlights how much more is at play than just the raw ingredients.
So true. So to kick things off,
Yeah.
let's start at the very beginning, the heart of any good pasta semolina.
Ah, semolina. The finely ground endosperm of durum wheat and the foundation of our beloved pasta.
Okay, semolina 101. I know it's high in protein, which is important for pasta, but why is that? What makes protein so crucial for that perfect al dente bite?
Well, it all comes down to gluten, those magical proteins that form when you mix flour and water. Durum wheat happens to be packed with these gluten-forming proteins, and you see when you knead that semolina dough, these proteins link up, forming a strong elastic network that gives pasta its structure, its chewiness.
Ah, so more protein, more gluten, stronger, springier pasta.
Er,
Got it. But I'm guessing not all semolina is created equal, right? I mean, you walk down the pasta aisle and you see prices all over the map, so what gives?
you're right on the money. The variety of durum wheat, where it's grown, how it's milled, all these factors can affect the protein content and the quality of the semolina, which of course impacts the price.
So just like with coffee or chocolate, there's a whole world of sourcing and nuance when it comes to semolina.
Exactly. And some producers will pay top dollar for those coveted certifications or single origin wheat, believing it makes all the difference in the final product.
Single origin pasta. Now, that's something I need to try. But here's the million-dollar question. Does all that fancy sourcing actually translate to a noticeable difference in taste?
Well, that's where things get interesting. While single origin semolina might have subtle flavor nuances on its own, once you factor in all the other components of a pasta dish sauce, herbs, spices, those subtle differences become almost undetectable.
Hold on, so you're saying spending extra on a fancy single origin pasta might not even make a difference in the final dish. That's mind-blowing.
It really is. It just goes to show that while the raw ingredients are important, other factors like processing techniques and, of course, your cooking method play a massive role in shaping the overall pasta experience.
Okay, so the pasta journey doesn't end with the wheat. What happens next?
Well, then comes the magical process of turning that semolina dough into all those wonderful shapes we know and love. That's extrusion.
Extrusion.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm picturing like a giant pasta Play-Doh set where you push the dough through different molds to create those iconic shapes.
Who got it? It's essentially a giant pasta press. But here's where things get a bit more complex because there are two main types of dyes used in pasta production: Teflon and bronze.
Teflon and bronze. Huh. I've definitely heard of bronze dyes being associated with like artisanal pasta, the kind that usually comes with a heftier price tag. So what's the difference? What makes bronze so special?
Well, Teflon dyes are smooth and they allow for high volume production. You can pump out a lot of pasta quickly. But those bronze dyes, those are where the magic happens. They're rougher than Teflon and they create a pasta with a coarser, more porous surface.
Ah, so that's the secret behind that textured, almost handmade look you get with certain pastas.
Mm.
But how does the choice of dye affect the cost?
Well, for starters, bronze dyes are more expensive to produce and maintain than Teflon. And they tend to produce pasta at a slower rate, which also adds to the cost. But there's another fascinating factor at play here that can really impact the price of certain pasta shapes: patent protection.
Wait, hold up patents for pasta shapes.
Yeah,
Seriously.
absolutely. You see some of those intricate, complex pasta shapes, they require incredibly detailed dye designs, and those designs can actually be patented, meaning only the manufacturer who holds that patent can produce that specific shape.
Wow. So some of that extra cost we're paying for fancy pasta might be going towards those intellectual property rights.
Mm-hmm.
That's incredible. It's like the intersection of pasta and patent law.
Precisely. But we're not done yet. We've talked about semolina, we've talked about extrusion, but there's another crucial step in pasta production that has a huge impact on both cost and quality: drying.
Drying. Okay, so I'm picturing those massive racks of pasta you see in those Italian cooking shows. Is there really that much variation in how pasta is dried?
More than you might think. And it's a big deal. Pasta can be dried quickly using high heat, which is efficient and cost-effective. But it can also be dried slowly at lower temperatures for a much longer period of time. We're talking 24, 48, even up to 72 hours.
Okay, I have a feeling you're about to tell me that that slow-dried pasta is the one ending up in those beautiful, expensive packages.
You know it. Slow drying is often touted as the key to preserving pasta's delicate flavor and aroma, and there's actually some science to back that up. Slower drying allows certain volatile compounds, the ones responsible for those desirable aromas, to develop more fully.
So there's a scientific reason why that slow-dried pasta might actually smell and taste different.
There is, but context is everything. While those subtle flavor differences might be noticeable if you're eating the pasta plain, once you add a robust sauce, those nuances might be completely masked.
This is getting really interesting. We've got the wheat, the shaping, the drying. It's like a pasta puzzle, and we're starting to put the pieces together. But what about the shape of the pasta itself? Does that really make a difference?
The shape of pasta is absolutely crucial. It influences both how the pasta feels in your mouth and, crucially, how well it holds sauce.
Okay, that makes sense. You wouldn't put a chunky ragu on angel hair pasta, right?
Exactly. Different shapes have different strength. Some are designed to trap chunky sauces, others cling beautifully to later creamier sauces, and some are all about showcasing the delicate flavors of simple oil-based preparations.
So it's like each pasta shape has its own specific culinary purpose. It's not just about aesthetics.
Precisely. But the question remains, does a more complex, harder-to-make shape actually translate to a better dish? Well, that's something we'll have to explore further.
Ooh, I love a good cliffhanger.
Mhm.
But before we get too deep into the shape sauce saga, let's take a step back and talk about one of the most common marketing claims you'll see on pasta packaging sauce cling. Is a rougher surface really better for holding onto sauce? Or is that just a clever way to sell us pricier bronze-cut pasta?
Now, that's a question that deserves some serious unpacking, and I think it's the perfect place to pause and let our listeners digest all this fascinating pasta knowledge.
Agreed. We've covered a lot of ground already, but trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next.
Oh.
We'll be right back to tackle that sauce cling conundrum and explore the role of starch in this culinary equation.
All right, so we left off on a bit of a cliffhanger. That whole sauce cling debate. Does a rougher pasta surface really make a difference when it comes to holding on to sauce?
I do. I feel like every fancy pasta brand out there is shouting about their superior sauce adhesion thanks to their bronze dyes.
And there is some truth to that. A rougher surface, like the kind you get from those bronze dyes, it does provide a bit more surface area for sauce to cling to,
No,
but
there's a but. I knew it couldn't be that simple.
it's not. The real MVP of the sauce cling game is actually something you might not expect: starch.
Starch, as in the stuff that makes pasta water cloudy.
Exactly. When you cook pasta, it releases starch into the water. And that starchy water is like liquid gold for sauce making.
Wait, isn't that like an old Italian grandma secret?
Hmm?
Using pasta water to make sauces creamy.
It is, and there's a reason for it. That starch is what helps the sauce emulsify, meaning it blends smoothly with the fats and liquids, creating a velvety texture that coats the pasta beautifully. So yes, while a rough surface might help a little, the real key to great sauce adhesion is understanding the power of starch.
So you're telling me that even if I have a perfectly textured bronze-cut pasta, if I don't use that starchy water, I'm missing out on a key element of sauce cling.
Absolutely. It's all about the science of pasta cooking. And speaking of science, this brings us to another crucial point: cooking technique.
Okay, so we've got the perfect pasta, the perfect sauce, but what about actually cooking the darn thing?
You could have the most expensive pasta in the world, but if you don't cook it properly, you're not going to get the best results.
Ooh, this is speaking to my soul. I've definitely had my share of pasta disasters, even with those fancy brands. So what are the key things to keep in mind when cooking pasta to really make it sing, regardless of price point?
Well, first and foremost, salt your water generously. It seems simple, but it makes a huge difference in the flavor of the pasta itself. And don't be afraid to cook that pasta al dente.
Al dente is everything. No one wants a bowl of pasta mush.
Exactly. And here's another tip that goes back to that starchy water we were talking about. Don't drain all of it away. Save a cup or two to add to your sauce as you're finishing it. It'll help create that creamy, emulsified sauce that clings beautifully to the pasta.
It's like pasta magic.
Mhm.
I've started to see how cooking technique can really elevate even a simple, inexpensive pasta. But okay, what about those intricate, harder to make shapes? do they actually make a difference in the final dish?
Well, some shapes are definitely better suited for certain sauces.
Yeah.
For example, long flat noodles like fettuccine are perfect for creamy, delicate sauces, while short tubular shapes like penne are great for trapping chunky
So
sauces.
there's a reason why certain shapes have become classics for certain dishes. It's not just about aesthetics.
Exactly. And some people simply prefer the look and feel of a more unique pasta shape. But in many cases, a simpler, less expensive shape will do the trick just fine.
This is making me rethink my whole pasta strategy. I've always been a sucker for those fancy imported brands, but now I'm starting to wonder if I'm paying more for the marketing than for actual quality.
That's a great point. And speaking of marketing, we can't ignore how branding and packaging influence our perception of pasta quality and value. You know those clear windows that let you see the pasta's rough texture, or those images of idyllic Italian landscapes?
Don't forget the words artisan heritage, bronze cut. It all sounds so enticing.
It's all about creating a story and experience even before you've cooked the pasta. But here's the reality. Those terms, while often accurate, don't necessarily guarantee a significantly better pasta experience. In fact, blind taste tests have shown that those subtle flavor differences between different wheat varieties often become undetectable once you add other strong flavors to the mix.
Wait, so you're saying a single origin bronze cut pasta might taste subtly different on its own, but in a fully composed dish, that difference might be lost?
Exactly. And that brings us to the heart of the matter. Is expensive pasta worth it?
The moment of truth. I'm on the edge of my seat here.
Well, the answer is it depends. There's no one-size-fits-all verdict.
Ooh, I was hoping you'd say that. Keeps things interesting.
For some people, those subtle improvements in texture, the complexity of certain shapes, or even the feeling of culinary sophistication that comes with a premium brand are worth the extra cost. But for others, especially those on a budget, a less expensive pasta will likely deliver a perfectly delicious and satisfying meal.
So it's all about individual preferences and priorities.
Exactly. There's no right or wrong answer. But here's what I hope our listeners take away from this deep dive cooking technique is king. Even the most expensive pasta can be ruined by poor cooking, while a simple, inexpensive pasta can be elevated to new heights with the right techniques.
So the next time we're standing in the pasta aisle, overwhelmed by all the choices, how should we approach this pasta puzzle?
Think about the overall dish you're making. If you're planning a simple preparation where the pasta is the star, maybe a delicate aglio e olio or a pasta salad, then investing in a higher quality pasta might make a noticeable difference. But if you're going for a hearty, sauce-heavy dish, those subtle nuances might be lost, and a less expensive option could be just as satisfying.
That's a great way to look at it, and it empowers us to make informed decisions based on our own tastes and budgets. But I have a feeling you have even more pasta wisdom to impart. What other factors should we consider when making our pasta selections?
Well, there's something fascinating about the way we perceive flavor, and it might surprise you.
Okay, lay it on me. What's this flavor perception bombshell you've got for us?
Well, think about it when you're actually eating a bowl of pasta. How much of a difference do you really notice between, let's say, a super expensive brand and a more budget-friendly option once it's all mixed up with your sauce and toppings?
You know, when I really think about it, probably not as much as I'd like to believe. I mean, I enjoy good food, but I'm not sure my taste buds are sophisticated enough to discern the nuances of single origin wheat in a bowl of spaghetti and meatballs.
And that's the thing. Research has actually shown that those subtle differences in the wheat variety, the bronze dyeing, the slow drying, they can become practically undetectable when they're combined with other strong flavors.
So you're saying that while a premium pasta might offer a slightly different experience when tasted plain in a fully composed dish, it's all about the bigger picture.
Exactly. It's the sauce, the herbs, the spices, the cheese, they all come together to create that overall flavor profile. So if you're using a bold sauce or lots of flavorful ingredients, those subtle nuances of the pasta itself might not be the make or break factor in how much you enjoy the dish.
This is really making me rethink my pasta buying habits. It's like you've unlocked a secret level of pasta knowledge.
But wait, there's more. There's another layer to this flavor puzzle that I find particularly fascinating, and it has to do with our expectations.
Okay, now you've really got my attention.
Yeah.
Tell me more about this expectation game.
Well, studies have shown that if you tell someone they're eating an expensive, high-quality pasta, they're more likely to rate it as tasting better, even if it's identical to a less expensive brand.
Hold on, so you're saying our brains can trick us into thinking something tastes better just because we think it's supposed to?
It's true. It's the power of marketing and branding. We create these stories around food, these perceptions of luxury and quality, and those stories can actually have a real impact on our sensory experience. But here's the important thing to remember. That doesn't mean those expensive brands are bad. They might genuinely offer certain advantages. It's just important to be aware of how our expectations can influence what we taste.
Wow, this is mind-blowing. Okay, so after all this pasta sleuthing, can we finally answer the big question, is expensive pasta worth it?
You know what? It all comes down to personal preference. There's no right or wrong answer. Some people truly value those subtle differences in texture and flavor, and for them, the extra cost is justified. But for others, a less expensive pasta will do the trick, especially if they're not planning to showcase the pasta as the star of the show.
So it's all about finding that sweet spot between quality and value based on what's important to you.
Exactly. And never underestimate the power of good cooking technique. That can make all the difference no matter what pasta you choose.
Couldn't agree more. So to sum it all up, what are your top tips for making the most of any pasta, regardless of price point?
First and foremost, salt that pasta water. It's a simple step, but it makes a huge difference in the flavor of the pasta itself. Second, cook it al dente. No one likes mushy pasta. And third, save some of that starchy pasta water and use it to create a creamy, luscious sauce.
Those are some golden rules right there.
Yeah.
Any last words of wisdom for our pasta-loving listeners?
Don't be afraid to experiment. Try different shapes, different brands, different cooking methods, and most importantly, have fun with it.
Beautifully said. Well, there you have it, folks. The truth about expensive pasta is that it's not always about the price tag. It's about understanding the nuances, knowing how to cook it properly, and ultimately just enjoying the process.
And remember, the best pasta is the pasta you enjoy the most.
So true. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of pasta. We hope you learned something new and are feeling inspired to get cooking.